أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our 2024 November retreat. I guess Thanksgiving type of retreat. Inshallah, we will start this retreat, and the general idea or the theme that we decided for this retreat was seeking help, seeking protection. How do we seek help? How do we find protection? In the current climate in the world, in our own lives, it's just something we're always needing. So that was the theme that we're looking into, and it was in the light of this verse, Allahu waliyyu ladina amanu. That's how the verse starts. Quran chapter 2, verse 257. And God is the protector and guardian of those who believe. So this is really kind of the core of what we're trying to understand, how we find this protector and guardian. And the three topics are, the three topics that will be split into: what is it that I need? Where do I turn to for help? And how do I ask for this help? How do I make these needs become a means for me to ask for help? So inshallah, we can get started. And the first topic, am I needy? And if I am needy, what is it that I need? And I think before we even go too deep into this, first let's just take a step back and take a look at our lives. Let's first place ourselves, try to see where we are. So I want to ask Sial, when you look at this picture, you see this picture of a little kid, it's growing up, something else is happening, and this old grandma. Like, what do you feel? What do you see?
Um, well, it looks like life is very busy. There's so much going on. I think any one of us can relate to one of these stages, and our mind is going to be very, set and focused on the next sort of landmark, the next milestone in our life, whether that's, completing school, getting a degree, getting married, getting a job, having a family, figuring out retirement, your career, all these things. So your life is very busy. You're focused on the next achievement, the next stage. And so you're always like reaching towards that next stage. Um, and you have ups and downs in your life, but it feels like, and you may be experiencing these challenges. You may see things that worry you, in the world at large, in your personal life. These challenges come up all the time, but at the same time, before you even get a chance to like process it, you're already on to the next thing that you have to work on, the next stressor, the next assignment, whatever it is. So it seems like life is kind of busy, distracted. Um, there's so much going on that there's not that much time to process it. So before you know it, you're sort of at the end of the spectrum. And you kind of look back and you wonder,
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, exactly. I think like if we zoomed out of it and we imagine maybe some aliens in outer space looking down at humans, I think this is what they would see. Yeah, they're born, they just like grow up, they do some stuff, and then they die off. And it's just like the short time span, maybe 60, 70 years. And this is your life. This is just what you're living. And before you even know it, it actually even passes by you. You don't know what's happening. Time flies by so quickly. And it's all just gone right there. And this life you're living, I'm imagining you guys were all living, and then you somehow this flyer pops up in front of you from somewhere. You heard it, and now you're like, oh, it seems it has some nice verses on it. It says God as a protector and helper. I was living my life, but let me go see what these people are doing. Let me see if I can learn anything. So continuing with this verse, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah wali ladina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila nur. God is the guardian of those who believe. He brings them out from darkness into light. So the verse continues saying, He brings them out from darkness into light. So it's not just the guardian and protector. Now there's this concept of darkness. And I'm living my life. We're all living our lives. And then now we saw this verse. And now first it was saying guardian and protector. Now it's saying darkness. But now I'm thinking, am I even in darkness? What is darkness? I was just living my life, enjoying things. Things were happening. Now it's saying, am I in darkness? And in fact, I would say, we all just had breakfast. We're all enjoying this social gathering. We're all happy. there's no darkness. You know, life is great. Everything is great. Everything's amazing. So we're like, okay, this verse it doesn't get me, or this verse is not for me, or what's this darkness that it's talking about? And then maybe let me put another image in front of you. So Sia, what do you know, when you look at this image, what do you see now?
It's a little bit overwhelming. Like all that's in front of you, you kind of it kind of puts you in sort of paralysis. Like I have all these challenges that I have to look forward to. So the fun of the current moment or whatever state you're in kind of gets, it's like you get sort of weighed down by all this responsibility and all these expectations potentially that you have in front of you. So it seems like, yeah, you want to get to that sunshine at the end. That's where you kind of like like sort of focusing your mind. You're hoping to get there. You're hoping there's something that's going to take you there eventually. Like all the efforts you're making will pay off, but you're looking at like all these things like directly in front of you as kind of scary challenges that you have to deal with.
Yeah. So I actually want to ask the audience, there's this concept of darkness, and here we have a nice road, and maybe there's this dark side to it, but does anyone actually feel this darkness? Is there any darkness in your life, or is it just like this picture here? Everything's just happy and joyful. Like, if there is no darkness, if there is no such thing as darkness, then we could all just get up and actually leave today, I would say. Like, we don't need to have this presentation, this discussion. We're all very religious, alhamdulillah, so there's no problems. But I want to maybe get a couple comments. Like, do you feel, have you thought about there's a darkness kind of creeping up in your life?
I feel like in a sense, a way that this relates to me is the pressure of all the like the pre-established stages of your life. And I mean, I'm sure I'm thinking about it because it's right there, right? Like I need to finish high school, and then I need to finish college, and then I need to do a master's, and then I need to have a good job, I need to have a good family, do really well with my kids, and be healthy, and all of these milestones that we're constantly going after. And once we get one, there's the next one. Like we don't have a time to pause. And or sometimes the way it says that there's no time to pause, or that these are the milestones that we have to get. And that's like, it puts a lot of pressure on you, like to feel like I alone have to get to these milestones. And that could be like, that can have an effect on me, and darkness.
I guess I was thinking that maybe we don't even have to think that far ahead into the future. Like as you were saying that we're here, we just had breakfast, we're pretty happy, but then this wonderful session is going to end, and then the next sessions are going to come. Those are going to end. The entire retreat is going to end, and I'll probably feel a bit of like sorrow at the end. Like we had a wonderful day and now it's gone. And then like Natalia was saying, I move on to the next thing in my life, the next events that I have planned for tomorrow, inshallah, and like eventually the future. But I find that everything that I go through that I enjoy is coming to an end. So even if I don't maybe always perceive it as like a darkness, I do feel like this pain of separation from things. And maybe, it feels more subtle now, but eventually there does come a time, maybe for like a major life event, that I feel it more pronounced. But there are signs, I guess, leading up to that, I guess, in my day-to-day life.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You see, I just want to correlate this picture. And if you notice that the footpath is a little bit curved, it's not straight, if you notice that. So basically, in engineering terms, you have like the AC curve, which is sine wave, and you have the DC curve, direct current, which is straight. So basically, in a nutshell, it seems that life is not straight. What I mean to say that victory is not straight. So you're gonna find a lot of curves, and these curves are basically twists and turns in life. Okay, and these turns can be like nice and sunny and saucy, and these turns can be dark and it can be ugly also. So what this picture correlates means that we always need protection and help from Allah, whether we're on the dark side or whether we are on the bright side. So that's why they say that, half of Iman is shukr, thankfulness, greatness, and half of Iman is patience. So during these two times, we always need help from Allah, protection and help from Allah Ta'ala. That's all.
Jazakallah khair. I mean, I think we can all agree there is, even if it's not clear to us day to day, even if maybe we're enjoying the moment, having nice breakfast, in the back of our minds, there's this creeping darkness. Something is there. We know something is off. And as kind of was already mentioned, but like, let's just take this little kid here. He's born. He's gonna now, what's he gonna have to face in this life? He's gonna have to go to elementary school very early on. He's gonna have to somehow go to, he was enjoying his first 5 years or so, and now he has to go to elementary school, start studying, go to high school. Oh, it's not enough to go to high school. Now you have to start studying for college, get into the best college, or your life's ruined. And then you get into college, and then you see, wait a second, that's not enough. You have to keep going. You have to keep studying. You have to, now you have to get good grades, or else you're worthless. Your value are your grades. If you don't get an A, then who are you? What's your purpose? You've been studying since 5 years old. Now you're in 20, and you're not getting good grades. Like, what are you doing? And it's not enough to get good grades. You have to also socialize. You have to go join clubs. You have to participate in activities. You need to do all these different things. And while you're doing all this stuff, you also prepare for internships, get interviews, start planning for your career, start networking, and then you finally graduate. You're like, okay, finally, I got a good job, good career. Now it's like life is going to be good. And then you spend 40 years working. You're spending your whole life at your company trying to move up, or you're doing something else, trying to have an impact. And you're just constantly expected to do things. You're constantly pushing for that next step. There's this light at the end of the road that you're really trying to get to. But finally, you get that nice home at the end, you get a car, everything's happy, and you're happy. Okay. Okay, just kidding. It was waiting for the climax, but just kidding. You get old and you die. So this is really life. I mean, we laugh and it's a joke and it is funny, but this is really the life we're all living. Like, we're all going through this. And like, we could look at these little kids running around and, oh, they're so beautiful and cute, but you're like, this is the path that's waiting for them. This is what they're gonna go through. This is what we're going through. This is what you're all going through right now, university and work. And we see that it's just this endless darkness that's creeping up, and you're always like pushing and trying to get somewhere, but it doesn't really lead you to go anywhere. So now let's think about ourselves in this scenario where we are. And this is like, going to this idea, like, I just want to help us understand, first we need to see, are we really in darkness? And really, that's like the beginning of this presentation is going to be in, are we in darkness, and how are we in darkness? So just focusing on this. I mean, just like in the kid example, walking on that path, you have so much expectations on you. There's so many burdens. Your parents expect something from you. Your friends expect something. Your university, your employers, everyone else expects something from you. You have to live up to those. And then you have your own expectations. You have your own desires, your dreams. You have your own goals. You want to also fulfill those expectations, but those are also kind of just like leaving you. You can't hold them. You're not able to fulfill them. And at the same time, you're overwhelmed by all this. You can't make anyone happy. You can't make yourself happy. You're just going through this cycle. And even the things you do have, let's say you have this job, or you have this house, or you have this family, you fear losing it. It's not enough to just have it. Now you have this fear, like, what if I lose it? What if it's taken away? What if a storm comes or a hurricane or this or that? It's like, what if it's gone? Like I can't keep it. With things I think I have, I can't even keep them. And you look at yourself and you can't even you get sick or you get old, you get frail, you get tired. You're like, I can't even sustain myself. I can't keep up with things. And maybe even worse, you're thinking, am I alone in all this? Who's out there to help me? You're going through all these difficulties that we just mentioned. But at the same time, you can't really find help from people or help from someone. The people you go to for help, they always somehow it's not enough. They can't do it. And then the things you ask for help, whether it's work, career, all these different things, they always abandon you as well. So you're left with this questions like, is there any help? Is there any guidance? Is there any refuge? And this is a kind of a dark state to be in. So this is our life, I guess. We're surrounded with these monsters. These monsters, they come in many different names, like the past. You look at the past, and the past can bring you great pain as well. Like things that happened in the past, you're like, why did that happen that way? Why did that have to be so? You look at the past and it brings you pain. You look at the future, you have these anxieties and fears, and you see the failures of your past, you see the anxieties of the future. Like wherever you look, it's just like constantly always these monsters. Like things have turned into monsters for you. You have these expectations, as we mentioned, hardships of the past again. And in the middle of all this, you look at yourself and you're like, you feel like you're this poor person. You don't really have anything to claim. You don't really feel like you have any wealth. Like if it's your health that you feel wealthy about, it's going away. If it's your life, it's going away. All these other things, it's all disappearing. It's all dying. You're powerless to change that. You can't really control it. You can't say, no, don't go away, stay. And at the same time, you feel so much need. Like you want so many things. You have so many desires, so many goals, needs. Even like something like wanting perfection, which we might call as a good thing, is a nice thing. It becomes a pain for your heart. Like you want perfection. You want to be able to do things that are perfect, but because you can't achieve it or you're not able to do it, now it brings you pain. Even like beauty. You want beauty. You see a beautiful little child, so beautiful, but they're going to grow old as well. That beauty is going away. Or you see beauty out in the world and that beauty is also going away. Even that want for beauty, that thing that you think is so nice, it becomes a source of pain for you. So, painting this terrible picture of our lives, and it might even get worse, but let's see what first the solution might be. Like what does society say? Okay, yeah, you're this human going through all of this, but this is how we're going to encourage you. And this is kind of the solution we're given. No, why are you being so negative? You can do it. Like, who's this guy up here being so negative, bringing us down? Believe in yourself, have self-love, have self-worth. You're amazing. Mama said, when I say all these, are you happy now? Does it? Are you solved?
For a moment, I might be able to convince myself, like, yeah, okay, I'm great. Somebody's telling me I'm great, so that means I'm great. But like that, how long can that carry you? Not very, very far. So eventually something's gonna happen. The reality is gonna sink in again, and either I'm gonna have to throw away the emotions that are coming to me and sort of try to just bury them, hide them, um, and tell myself these things, like try to force it into my mind, or I'm gonna have to face the reality. So it feels like I'm gonna have to constantly be lying to myself in order to believe any of these things.
Yeah. I mean, these are things that we can tell ourselves. Maybe I'm amazing. Maybe I am valuable. Maybe I am strong. Maybe I am rich. Like all these, I have value just by myself. But even these people, they don't look like monsters like these ones, but they're also monsters because the things they're telling you, they're not helping you. They're just the exact same. It's just the exact same harm as the monsters are giving, and they're trying to be nice and it's encouraging, but the worldview they're teaching you, what they're trying to tell you, it's just as bad. They're acting as monsters in your life. And the problem is, no matter like I guess, I mean, let me not go there. So before I move on, does anyone think that, does anyone disagree with this? I'm curious. Do you think that, no, this actually does solve my problem?
Not to disagree, but what do you mean that these are like monsters? Like the guy says you're perfect. Like what's monstrous about this? Like, or self-love, love yourself. What's wrong with that? I mean, why is this monstrous? The other ones we understood, okay, because they scare me, like the anxieties or the worries and whatnot. But what's wrong with saying that I am amazing? Like, why is this monstrous? This part was not very clear to me.
To some degree, it's monstrous because it doesn't really match up with my reality. So it feels like they're almost feeding into the issues that I have because it's like burying me deeper. Because I'm telling myself like everything's okay when reality is showing me like you can't, like you haven't resolved any of this. None of those issues have gone away. So they're pulling you like back into that loop. Like they keep taking you into that like it's basically a nightmare. I mean, you're in this constant loop, this constant cycle of distraction to pull you away from these issues that you have. So it's like they're like throwing you back into that loop. I mean, to some degree, that's what I see. Like they're not helping me in any way. And they're lying to me. I mean, that's enough to say like, oh, you're lying to me about the most important aspect of my reality. Like, where am I? Like, what's gonna happen to me? What is happening to me at this moment?
So this next slide, if you rely on yourself, like these people are telling you to do, you're perfect, you're amazing, you can do it, seek from yourself, you can, all these different things. If you rely on yourself, Nursi paints a beautiful image in one of the texts that we're reading, in one of the sections we're reading to prepare for this. It says there's this bridge, very dark bridge. On the left and right, there's like storms. On the bridge, there's monsters. And I'm going on this bridge with a little light. And that little light is what it means to rely on yourself. And this is what you see. You see, you're walking on this dark bridge. You see these monsters ahead of you. You look around, it's all dark. And you might say, no, that's not how I feel. Brother Yusuf says, I don't agree. They're not monsters. They're actually, I feel like when someone says you're amazing, I feel nice. I feel happy that day. It makes my day. And the reality is, what happens is once you start relying on yourself, you know that you yourself, you're very weak. I mean, we talked about this, like, you're poor, you're powerless, you're needy. And maybe you don't know that. So we need to first like go to that part. We don't have maybe too much time to dive into that, but like if you know that you can't control the things around you, you can't control your future, you can't control your anxieties or like make like something in the future like death or hardship or things that are going to come. You don't know how to control them. You don't know, like, let's say if you don't get a job when you graduate, what are you going to do? Or if I get fired, what am I going to do? If something else happens in my life, how do I respond to it? If something happens to my family member, if my family member gets cancer or gets sick, how do I now respond to these events? How can I control them? What's my power? Like, if you are honest with yourself, you see that the amount of power you have is so little. You're actually so weak. But you also have so much need. You want everyone to be happy. You want your family members to be happy. You want them to be healthy. You have all these feelings, but you're also so weak in terms of enacting on those feelings. So when you rely on yourself, it's, as Mama said, they're telling you a lie. Like, seek help from yourself. You can do it, but you know yourself. You can only lie to yourself for so long before that lie creeps up and then hits you in the face. You're like, oh, I can do it. And then, oh, actually, I realize I can't do it. By myself, I'm not able to do it. By myself, I see that I don't have just value inherently. I can't just do things. And I can't just love myself just to love myself. Like, why am I loving myself? This thing that's going to die, every day it's getting older. This thing that's imperfect. I love beauty and I love perfection. But if you look at yourself, you don't see beauty and perfection. If you just look at the material self, it's always dying, it's getting older, it's so many things are happening to you. You see imperfections very clearly. So this is kind of what your life turns into when you focus on yourself. Maybe it gives you a very little light to say, yes, I can do it. But you are weak. You know you truly own nothing. You can't really control anything. So what you're seeking help from, like seeking help from yourself, you know it cannot give it. Like if you seek help from someone that's weak and poor, how much help, what do you expect from them? It's the same thing when you seek help from yourself. Like what do you expect from yourself? Like how can you do something? How can you now turn this into a bright light by yourself?
Yeah, and if anything, all those statements are just increasing that pressure and expectation. At that point, you're gonna want to prove, you're gonna feel like you constantly have to prove to yourself that you are valuable through those things. Like, I'm perfect, I'm beautiful, I'm so good at what I do. Like all these things that people are trying to tell you to sort of dismiss those feelings. It's just gonna increase that pressure on you to try to fulfill that expectation.
Would you like to add on to that? Okay. So let me ask the question. Did we paint a picture? Or do you feel like you are in darkness now?
Thank you.
We have a comment.
Darkness. The darkness is touched on. There's also interconnectedness, so you don't just worry about your achievement, where you're going, but you also worry about so many other things. I mean, many of us, I think, we've been following what's happening, let's say in Gaza or Lebanon. Even if you are safe and in a warm space and you're filled, the moment you see these images or even think of them, what's happening to other people in other parts of the world, your heart sinks. And for your to be really truly fulfilled, those problems have to be solved. And that's one other place where we feel completely helpless. I don't need just, clarity about my future and my, everything passing. That is already very dark. And then this interconnectedness that makes us extremely vulnerable, as Imam Nursi also highlights a lot. And also even darker, what kind of a world is this that you have no control over this, but you're utterly terrified. And Gaza is one glimpse. There's so many other things have been happening as well, but this, now that we have a live stream connection to it, is it's just horrifying. And how can you get out of it, even if you're most accomplished and most healthy? And the fact that you can't change that really bothers us and bothers you, us. Yeah, I just wanted to add. And one other thing is that even those help things, the ones that are more helpful, they keep saying, let it go and ask the universe, put it out there in the universe. Even they are admitting that you cannot get out of this darkness by just, reiterating that I have some power, I have some knowledge, I have some, creativity, I should tap into it. Even that they, the better self-help ones, or they say you have to let it go and you have to allow something else to work on you. So, because that's indicating that we have to get out of this little light that I can maybe enlighten things to get some relief.
So, one of the darknesses that I sense, because you show a picture at the end, we are dying, but I feel like every day I am dying in a sense. But maybe the extreme case of this is, let's say we are going to come together. Some friends come here from long distances for just this day, for example. Okay, we enjoy each other's presence. But at the end of the day, they're going to leave on a plane and go back to where they come from. So this separation is so painful. The more you love someone, the more the painful becomes the separation. So this is, for example, death of a temporary joy that I sensed, and it's taking something away from me. The joy itself stays with me for a day, but then the pain of the separation sticks. Like it doesn't go away as quick. And every day is like this. Every joyful experience that I go through actually leaves a scar in me. And the older I get, the bigger those scars become. So this is why every day that we live in joy is leaving a huge scar on us, because we don't know. It's becoming a reminder of my ultimate death. This is why in a song, they say every time I say goodbye, I die a little. So really every goodbye is sort of a death, a little bit of a death, reminding me of or making me taste this death again and again. So either I would like to numb myself so that I don't feel this separation, this pain. Otherwise, yes, I mean, this is the darkness. Every joy comes with its darkness right there.
So it doesn't end here though. The darkness doesn't end here, and kind of it was touched on. So we were talking about this darkness. Oh, I'm poor, needy, powerless. But let's say you weren't. Let's say you had all the wealth in the world. You were rich, like a king, like this. So, Mohammed Siad, if you're rich like a king, does this not apply to you? Are you now? You're not poor. You're not needy. You have everything you want. So now this is the solution. You're not in darkness anymore.
I still want to get rich, but I don't think that's gonna solve a lot of other questions that I've had from before.
Let's say you have a car better than a Teeks. You have a lot of money and a nice house. Does that make it feel better?
Maybe for a moment I'm distracted enough to forget about all those other problems I had, but in no sense have I resolved any of that.
Yeah, and kind of as it has already been mentioned, especially with the Gaza and all these different things, we see that, first of all, even if you had all these things, you can't claim you have wealth and power and you're not needy. You can never claim against that. But even going further, like you see that, this is Thorin from The Hobbit. You see that he has all the gold beyond measure. But it doesn't help him. It doesn't actually satisfy him. If anything, it poisons him. And in my own existence, I see that the gold, all this wealth that supposedly I have around me, it's not actually giving me anything. In fact, I see that if I rely on these things, I have like this emptiness in myself, this void in myself. And why do I have this void? It's because I have this deeper need, a deeper need about making sense of the world, understanding my purpose. Like why am I here? Why was I placed here? Why, like, what am I to do? I look around, I see flowers are dying, beauty is going away, things are happening around me that maybe don't look nice. I see destruction, I see chaos, all these things that I don't enjoy. I look at all of them. And then I look at my life. This looks really bright and amazing. But look at all the death that's surrounding it. There's all these graves and coffins and all these expectations and things. And I'm looking at all these paths. And I'm like, why am I here? What's my purpose to this all? I feel that my needs, they go so much deeper than just wealth and money and, all these different things. Like I have this existential need. Why was I placed here? And I have this need for eternity, maybe even in my heart. I want an eternity. I want an eternal life. I want something that's always beautiful, always perfect, always amazing. Like I feel my heart needs that. But at the best, even if you live to the highest standard you could on this world, it's just going to be a very short time span. So definitely, this is the conclusion. I am in darkness. And I hand it off. That's no more from me.
All right, so from the last section, we established two things, right? So the first thing was that as humans, we have needs that we need to fulfill, right? And we're constantly working on fulfilling those needs. And sometimes that becomes really difficult for us. And the second thing that we established was that, as Brother Abdul Rahman pointed out, that we are in darkness, right? Or possibly in darkness. So we pose the question here, is neediness the source of my darkness? So from a societal perspective, we can sort of think about what our needs are. And as humans, when we are needy, like what does that mean? Usually if I'm needy, like I don't want to show it to others. I want to just try to figure it out for myself. Try to pull myself out of that situation or the darkness or low point in my life. And build myself up. At that point, I feel like, okay, maybe I can be content. Maybe I can be happy. And that's society's way of telling us that we can escape our needs by ourselves, like within ourselves. But is that really true? Like, are we pulling ourselves out of this darkness, right? So in order to even understand this question, we're going to begin with like an example that will help us understand what our needs are.
All right, so we have these two rocks, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, if you're not familiar. This human being and this little rock. So on the outward, when you're looking at it, like as Marie mentioned, we're being told that our success, our achievements, being physically strong, good looking, well dressed, having achieved so much in our careers, that makes me valuable. So just looking here, we clearly feel like this person is the model of success. He's not needy, he's independent. And this rock, this poor little rock, is meaningless, has no value. So clearly we're looking at this and we're thinking, yeah, this human being is clearly better than that simple rock. But when we take a closer look, we realize, yeah, he's achieved these things. On the outside, he looks like, like he's a great success. He doesn't have this neediness, but the truth is, he still has all these questions that are pestering him. He still has all these needs, and there's no way of escaping those needs. He's always going to have these emotions that are reminding him that he's needy. He's going to have these questions that are reminding him, like, I have something that within me has not been satisfied. What is my purpose? Where am I going? Do people like acknowledge my success? Like, is it success if people don't say that I'm successful, and if they don't see me in that light? So how is society accepting me? And then he has the many obvious physical needs. And looking at all those needs compared to this rock looks like it's perfectly content as it is. It's serving its purpose in the most, exact way. It doesn't have all these needs. So when you take another look at this, you realize that the human condition is one of neediness. There's like no escaping that. And your question of like, is this person so strong, independent, secure, and like having all those things, those characteristics that we feel make us superior to this rock, those all kind of sort of come into question now, because the human is actually, in this sense, very weak, very needy.
Okay, so now we know that we have all these needs, and we want to look to the Quran to sort of understand like what this all could be. And so we have this ayah here which says, "Indeed, we have created man on the most excellent of patterns, then sent him down to the lowest of the low, except those who believe and do good deeds. They will have a never-ending reward." So we can try to take this ayah to understand not only our neediness, but our value as humans, right? So what is our value? So Revelation is telling us that this ayah that we just discussed is telling us that man is capable of being the most excellent of patterns and also capable of being the lowest of the low, right? So there's a spectrum here that they're talking about. So despite all of our neediness, we can still be deemed the most excellent of patterns. And if we think back about the example of the rock, right? And looking at it, when you first look at a human versus a rock, right? The human seems much more superior to the rock, right? But this ayah is telling us that we're actually capable of being lower. So we can also, so then how do we become the lowest of the low, right? So this ayah is telling us that man is capable of becoming the lowest of the low. We can think about back to our needs that we have to fulfill and addressing those. And sometimes, addressing our needs can make us feel overwhelmed and make us feel weak, as we discussed in the first section. So maybe you have a job that you've been looking, like you're trying to look for a job for months and months and on end, and you just can't find a job. You just can't find it. The economy's bad, and you just can't find this job, and you feel weak as humans, and you feel like, okay, like where am I gonna go? You feel like you're in this darkness, you're in this situation, and maybe society's telling you, okay, like pull yourself out, go try to make connections, apply, work on your resume, right? Like you can do this, right? But this ayah actually is telling us that nothing other than our belief and our good deeds will help us, right? So nothing other than our creator can help us. Furthermore, Imam Nursi goes into the darkness of unbelief, right? So here there's a direct correlation between disbelieving and being the lowest of the low. So unbelief actually severs our relationship, our connection to our creator. And because of that severance, we lose our ability to build this relationship with him, and we lose our ability to be on the most excellent of patterns. So on the other spectrum, how do we embody the best of patterns, right? So we already established that if we don't believe, we turn to anything other than our creator, other than Allah, then we become the lowest of the low. So what do we have to do? We have to respond with Iman. So Imam Nursi says that belief turns an insignificant man to become God's addressee, a sustainer worthy of paradise, superior to all other creatures, for example, like the rock, right? So our belief and good deeds is what is essentially allowing us to build this connection with our creator, and become the best of patterns. Another way we can explain this section here, where Imam Nursi talks about our needs, because we constantly are talking about how we are so needy as humans. So despite our neediness, how can we still be the best of patterns, right? So here Imam Nursi talks about the wings of impotence and poverty. Impotence and poverty here are characteristics of our needs. So he's saying the wings of our needs are what allows us to fly to this high station of worship and attain this highest position and closeness to our creator. So our needs allow us to turn to Allah, to have faith in our creator, and to build this relation with our creator that will allow us to become more valuable to him. So when we look at the rock example, as we keep going back to it, the rocks may not have as many needs as like the humans may have, right? So the rock may not be able to experience this level of knowing the creator, whereas the humans with all the needs that we do have are able to experience this. So essentially here it's saying that our needs are raising us to this high position, allowing us to increase our value with our creator. And that's allowing us to be the best of patterns.
All right, so I'm gonna explain a little bit more with an analogy of how we can understand the purpose of this relation and how this relation to our creator can actually make us better than, you know, any kind of inanimate beings, any animate beings, rocks, animals, even angels. How can we be the best of creation? So if we take, for example, a painting, and we can look at that painting in two ways. One, we can look at it in the perspective of its you know, raw material, the physical value of that painting. That is going to be worth less than $100 maybe, you know, just like canvas, some paint. Similarly, a human being, if you look at the raw material of a human being, just flesh and bones, that value becomes very minimal. But I mean, we all personally feel like I'm obviously worth more than just, you know, my physical material value. But what is the purpose, or like, sorry, what is the source of that value? The source of that value is actually the inscriptions on that canvas. You know, what is being painted onto that canvas by the creator, the artist behind that work. And that artist in itself, they're painting each brushstroke with meaning, with intention, with a wisdom. They themselves are bringing that beauty to the canvas. So this same work of art, I'm sure if I told you that this was painted by like a 12-year-old, you would believe me. This work of art was actually this like second most expensive, like privately purchased piece, $300 million. How is it worth $300 million? Because it has that association with this specific artist, this artist who had this, you know, like amazing idea to create this new genre of art. So that tells you that there's a wisdom, there's a meaning, there's a purpose behind this art. And that's what people are paying for. They're not paying for whatever that is. It's this value, this message that is behind that art. And so you can only read that message through that relation to its creator. That creator is the one who actually inscribes the meaning onto that canvas. The meaning comes from that association when it points to the creator and the wisdom behind that, the message that they're putting onto this canvas. So similarly, the human being, we have upon us, each of us can be seen as a work of art. We have the inscriptions of our creator that are written on us, and they're reflecting some characteristics of our creator. And so that's what creates that immense value. And so we want to provide a case study to kind of better understand practically how do we read these messages and bring meaning into all these experiences that we have in our life. So take, for example, an event happens in your life where you lose your job, or maybe you get expelled from school, some disciplinary action, because you posted a message about what's happening, in Gaza. You're, overwhelmed. You feel like you have to speak on it. You feel like you're doing the right thing. You post this message, you say something, and you think you're doing everything right. You think, of course, the creator is gonna be pleased with me. I'm doing what is, what I'm expected to do to call toward justice. And in that moment, you lose your job. Your sense of security, the thing that you felt was bringing you security, stability in your life, your source of income, sort of your your path towards your future, the future that you've imagined for yourself is now completely vanished. In that moment, you're going to be feeling a lot of just uncertainty, fear, anxiety. That moment is like Abdul Rahman showed us visually. It's like that event has become a monster for you. It's a source of this great worry. You're feeling like, life is chaotic, overwhelming, these random things are happening to you. What's going on? It doesn't make sense to me. What is the meaning of all of this? Am I just unlucky? All these questions you're asking. Why is this happening? And this is essentially how you read that event with the darkness of disbelief. Because you're asking yourself sort of these questions of like, why is this happening to me? What am I going to do? What will become of me? Why is life like this? So that happens when you're actually reading the message, sort of turning to yourself and thinking, what am I going to do? Like, why is this happening to me personally? And so you're not able to find meaning in that message. At that point, you're just sort of overwhelmed by it. That's when you're kind of end your point of like your lowest needy, sort of needy self. And in that neediness, at that moment, the seed is being planted by your creator. That same moment, you can recognize your neediness, and realize that your neediness is something that you cannot resolve by your own hand. You're not capable of fulfilling that neediness. You're not capable of pulling yourself out. And it's an invitation actually for you to turn to your creator. He's the only one who can actually save you from that. So in that same moment, you can turn with that neediness to your creator, and that is how you can read meaning into that message. So this is the light of belief. That same event becomes meaningful because it brings you closer to your creator. It served a specific purpose. He sent that gentle message, that invitation for you to turn to him. That was in fact the purpose of that event. And we can see this. We looked at that spectrum, right, of a human being going from a baby to, going to school, then graduating, growing old. All of these events, we can see as part of our education. They serve a specific purpose. So these messages are actually personalized messages that your creator he's created these as a education for you. He's creating this private lesson for you because he knows your needs and he knows what will pull you into sort of out of this darkness and give you this understanding, this ability to find meaning, to sort of experience belief to find a way out of that darkness. And so that same event then becomes valuable because it has a meaning, it has a purpose that your creator is educating you through it. So in the same sense, like that event allows you to find meaning, find meaning in your life, in your purpose, answering some of those questions that you had before. And also the other significant part is that it's creating this relation, because now that you've turned to your creator, you're able to actually understand him and experience him because he's telling you something. He's sending you that specific personal message. And so at the same point, you're able to actually develop this deeper understanding of him, and you're able to have this personal relationship with him. And so just kind of to wrap this up, the only way that we got to that point was sort of this pivot point of neediness. So neediness is that invitation, and that is that way, that is kind of like the thing that carries you to allow you to trust in your creator. And when you trust in him as your protector and your wali, then you're able to see the sort of the light within all these dark moments.
So I lied. I guess I'm talking. So we kind of set the stage. We're all in darkness. We feel that, this verse in the beginning, we looked at God as a protector, the guardian. He takes the believers from darkness into light. We feel this darkness around us. We feel the need for a guardian, a protector. We want to go into the light, and we were looking into how maybe all these different needs and our weakness, like the future, the past, our anxieties, how they gave me this darkness. And maybe some of the solutions were, get rid of the neediness, kill off the neediness, maybe think you're amazing kind of stuff. But we realized, actually, no, the solution is not in getting rid of the neediness. It's not in being like an actual rock that doesn't feel anything. It's rather in finding your needs as a relationship with God, forming a relationship with your creator through those needs. And then, like the painting example, once you form that relationship, then your needs, all those things that you're witnessing, all those events, like the kid going to college and life and going through all those struggles, they start gaining meaning. And it stops just being to get a career and a house and a job and all these different things, which don't have value by themselves. But once you are able to set up that relationship with your creator, then those things gain meaning. And that happens through your neediness. Like your neediness is needed. So, and just continuing from there, about the verse, it says like takes you from darkness into light. So it's like, how do we find this light even further? And kind of our session is the introduction to this. So stick around for the second and third session, and inshallah they'll do a much better job in bringing you to the light. We brought you into the darkness, but they'll bring you into the light. But it's, how do I take God as a wali, as a protector, so that I find light through him? And let's just go through the whole verse one time. So God is the ally of those who believe, or he's the protector, the guardian, the wali of those who believe. He brings them out from darknesses into the light. And those who disbelieve, their allies are taghut. They take them out of the light into darknesses. Those are the companions of the fire. They will abide eternally therein. So the other side of the coin are those who disbelieve, their allies are taghut. And there's like no middle ground. Either you're taking God as the ally, or you're taking taghut as the ally. And if you're taking taghut as the ally, you see that it's saying it takes them out of the light into darknesses. Those are the companions of the fire. They will abide eternally therein. And Dwal, what is this taghut that it's talking about? Like, how do I understand taghut?
So the way that some scholars take it, some of them just straight up say, it's the same as shayateen, the whisperer. Some of them say they are false gods. But in a nutshell, we can think of taghut as anything that is taking me away from worshiping God, obeying him, or relying on him. So like if I rely on myself, for example, that would be me relying on taghut, and that takes me away from, taking God as my protector or my ally.
Yeah, like the things that are taking you into darkness. We talked about all these things in the beginning that took you to darkness. Everything there is a taghut. We can call that all Taghut. All those feelings, those thought processes, the worldview that we had in the beginning that we feel is bringing me into darkness, we can call that as Taghut. And we see that we can look, if we just look at our lives to see these things that are taking us into darkness, it becomes clear. Like we don't need to even have like a special description of like, okay, this is Taghut, this isn't. It's just you look at your life, you're honest. Okay, I see that when I do this, even if it gives me a temporary joy or pleasure, or I see that, I like money or I like spending money and this is nice, but I see that, there's a darkness behind this. It's taking me to darkness. It's not leading me anywhere well. Then you know that you're taking Taghut as your ally. And we do this in so many things without even realizing. Like we're like, when we first heard of Taghut, you're like when I first looked at this verse, I'm like, Taghut? Like, what are you saying? Like their allies are Taghut. They take them out of the light into darkness. I'm like, I don't know what Taghut means. I don't know who Taghut is. I believe in God. I'm a believer. I'm a Muslim. I should be in the ones that go from darkness into light. But then I look at my life, and this verse, it's for guidance for me. It's telling me about my life. I see that so many times in my life, I'm being taken into darkness. And like just some examples like we made. Dua, how could gaming be a Taghut for you, for example?
I think gaming is a very important one because it actually points to a bigger attitude, a bigger escapist attitude that we have. Where it's like, people are like, oh, like believe in yourself, but they're also like, oh, take a vacation, like watch a movie or do something because it's going to take you away from remembering that you are in so much darkness and in so much trouble. So gaming, for example, it just serves as a distraction. And if we look at the Western society, very easily we can be like, oh, you look, they're like turning to alcohol, which is really such a big example of it because it's actually reducing your inhibition. It's lowering your inhibition. It is making you lose your judgment. So it is taking you away from your humanity. So you're sort of compromising on your humanity in order to escape this darkness that you feel in your life. But we can't just say, oh, the West does it. We Muslims never do it because we do those things. We do, like sometimes we'll spend days binge watching movies. Or we'll spend, a lot of time, especially people who are depressed, they tend to sleep a lot as well, So sleep, gaming, all these things, they're taking us away from accepting that we are in darkness because really it's such a painful reminder and such a painful feeling.
Yeah. Okay, but gaming is not productive. No one likes gaming. Like that's a bad thing. It's Taghut, take it. But but what about working and studying? Working and studying, how can they be Taghut? They're so beautiful, amazing. That's how you get ahead in society. Even you're calling those Taghut?
Yeah, and I think that reminds me also of when Sial very beautifully just straight up said, they're lying. Because when you study, what you're thinking is if I study, I'm going to get ahead in life. If I work hard, I'm going to get ahead in life. It's going to protect me from living an uncomfortable life. It's going to be my savior, And of course, I'm not saying, don't study, don't work. Those things do help you, but see them as they are. They are, forms of you asking, and I'm not going to touch much upon that because the second group's going to do it. But ultimately, who is saving you from those discomforts is God, but we don't recognize that. We take these things to be our protectors, but really that's just a lie.
Yeah. And finally, how about medicine? Are you, I don't want to say, but you don't believe in vaccinations, or are we against medicine, or like what's so wrong about taking my pills and getting all these different things happening, going to the doctor, and like how can something like medicine, which is supposed to bring me health and help me become my Taghut as well?
I think because like we've been talking about how our needs help us to remember God and help us to see that He is the one who is the sustainer, who is taking care of our needs. But when we turn to these things, the attitude that we have is that they are the ones that are really helping us, And it's not like, oh, like you either rely on God or you don't. You either rely on God or you rely on something else, or you rely on, this other thing. And it paints this picture of shirk. And I think that is why, it's actually such a big problem because we'll very casually just be like, oh, like just have this medicine because it is what's going to make you feel better. And we completely sever our relationship with Allah. So
yeah.
Yeah.
In everything we do, like gaming, working, studying, taking something like taking medicine, you're choosing an ally. You're either taking God as your ally or you're taking something else. You're taking Tagut as our creator is telling us as an ally. And when you take Tagut as an ally, what does it mean? I mean, when it takes you into darkness, if you're playing games or you're binging or you're working so hard, you're studying, you see that these things are taking you into darkness, then that's your Tagut. You see that something about the way you're approaching it, your worldview, how you're reading it, it's taking you into darkness. And that's where you just stop and say, wait a second. I don't want to go into darkness. I don't want to be of the ones that, I don't want to be a companion of the fire where I'm going to stay there forever. I want to actually find light in my life. So then you say, how do we switch the script then? How do I then not fall into Tagut? And as Dua said, yes, those will be the topics of this next discussion. So stick around for those.
Could you go back to the last verse? Because this actually also reminds me, because we're in a Muslim setting, we're all Muslims here. Sorry, no, the last slide, the one with the medicine on it.
Okay.
So it's not like we can very easily like go from this discussion and be like, oh, I'm a believer, so I don't really need this. But in our lives, like practically what's happening is that we have moments of belief and we have moments of unbelief. And specifically looking at medicine, it's reminding me of the verse that, comes up a lot in the Quran, which is like, when they are in trouble, they call out to us. And as soon as the trouble is taken away from them, immediately they fall into doing shirk. And so many times, like, of course, like practically speaking, when you say, like when you go to visit a Muslim and they're going through something, you're going to be like, oh, may God give you shifa. Or they're like, oh, may God help me. But then immediately when the ailment is removed from them, they're going to be like, you know what, Tylenol, that's the medicine. That's what really helped me come out of it. So they misattribute the credit after that pain is taken away from them. So just be cautious in your lives. It's not necessarily that you're either going to be, you can just walk out from here and be like, oh, I'm a believer. I never do this, So there are moments of belief and unbelief. So we should have our guard up.
Yeah. And inshallah, this will be something we'll dive into throughout. So what's the alternative, Dua? Like, how do I approach this differently?
So for the alternative, let's turn back to a few verses before the one that we're discussing. So let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So the truth that we're talking about here is that there is one God, that he is the one who is the sustainer, that he is the one that I am going towards death. There is going to be a day of judgment. And after that, there are going to be two different outcomes from my life, which the Quran repeatedly mentions. So this is the truth that we're talking about, because when we talk about belief, when we talk about Iman, it's not as simple as I believe in God. It's Iman in a lot of different things. So it's Iman in one God, Iman in the day of judgment, messenger, all those things. So it's combined. So whoever renounces false gods and believes in Allah has certainly grasped the firmest, unfailing handhold. And Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. God is the ally of those who believe. He brings them out from the darkness into the light. So over here, he's saying whoever believes in Allah has certainly grasped the firmest unfailing handhold. So I thought we could talk about how belief helps me to get that, which will also be me summarizing a bit of what we said, while also seeing some examples of how God is the wali. So belief strengthens me in two different ways. One we've already talked about, which is, we have everyday darknesses in our lives, we have needs, we have pains. And when I have belief, all these things that would otherwise have been purposeless creations are now purposeful. So I'm like, okay, I'm going through something, but it is being created, and it is being created with a purpose. So I feel like, I have a purpose in life. Like one of the slides before was mentioning, when I go through something, I'm like, what will I do? Whereas if you have belief, well, you look to the Quran and God tells you, seek help in patience and prayer. So now you have a direction. So this helps you in your everyday life. It takes you into light. But also, like Yusuf Bhai mentioned, we're going towards death every single day. And I have this huge problem of an eternal darkness that faces me if I don't do well in this life, if I don't see it as a toiling land, right? Or a land where I'm supposed to toil and work hard. And what belief does is that it is contingent upon me recognizing that I have a Lord, that I am being created and I am owned, and it helps me to fulfill my duties towards him, which also protects me from eternal darkness. And it also, enables me to ask help against that, or ask for protection against that eternal darkness. So God is our wali in many different ways. Like we've talked about, one, he will help you with calamities in this life. So for example, him protecting Nuh alayhi salam or his followers was him protecting the believers from a calamity. But also he protects me and helps me with my eternal life as well. For example, by sending the Quran, sending the book, sending messengers, multiplying good deeds. That is him helping me out. My duties, when I believe, when I do them, for example, when I'm praying namaz and I feel like, I'm really focusing on the words, my connection with Allah is, stronger, I feel like it's easier for me. It even feels good, like it's an enjoyable experience because, I'm focusing, my connection is stronger. That namaz is made easier for me. Whereas when I'm praying and I'm just like, oh, I don't feel like praying, whatever, I'm just saying the words, I'm not connecting with the meaning, it feels like a chore. Even this is a help of God that your duties, your responsibilities are made to feel easier. Your burdens are lightened. So these are some ways that, God is our wali. It's not just, like physical protection, but that protection and help comes in a lot of different flavors in a lot of different ways. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
I feel like we can take.
I think there's some time, right? So I just wanted, if you could go back to the slide with the quadrants, yeah. So as maybe some sentiments expressed here, but I'll vocalize them. I mean, they're my sentiments too. So studying takes me to darkness, gaming, working, potentially sleeping, things like taking medicine. That seems like everything I do in my life, right? Is there, and the question that came to my mind was, if studying and gaming are both equally taking me to darkness, well, might as well enjoy one path a bit more than the other, perhaps. But it seems like part of also what you're saying, and you can maybe elaborate on this, is that when I find myself in darkness, right? I felt that very vividly through this beautiful presentation that all of you really nicely put together. And then I have the question, right, in the second portion that you guys answered of, are these needs that I'm finding myself with, that I sometimes feel burdened with, are they the reason I'm going into darkness? Right? Like I have to do all these things, but I'm poor, I'm weak, can hardly sustain myself. I had breakfast and I'm thinking, oh, what snacks might there be for lunch? Right? So is it that those needs awaken a specific consciousness in me, in which I ask the very question of, am I just haphazardly placed here? Right? Am I just subject to this world and its randomness and its chaos and its arbitrariness with just myself to proceed, and myself is clearly just insufficient as it is, right? And it seems like what you were saying is that those needs awaken this consciousness, which take me to the recognition that whoever has given me those needs, whoever has placed me here, must be the one who is also actively taking care of me, leading me, guiding me, and so on, right? So even perhaps when I'm gaming, and I mean, Isa would never have this experience, but I get stuck in a portion. I can't pass the boss, right? Or the level. I have this need and I'm trying, but it's not happening. It's not working no matter what I do. And I don't have my brother next to me. I can just hand it off. And even if I did, like, I don't want to just do that. I want to be able to succeed. But when I take that need and utilize it to recognize that, oh, like I've been given this need so that it relates me back to the one who has created me, suddenly that becomes beyond value, right? Even the gaming itself can become a valuable experience in that moment. But if I use it to just kind of distract myself or get rid of that consciousness, it works the opposite. So I mean, I'm trying to put together my understanding of what has been discussed so far. But also ask the question of, how do we find that light? And maybe again, you're saving a lot for the other presentations. I recognize that. How do I find that light in my life when I do end up spending it studying, working, sometimes vacationing, gaming, sometimes taking my pills, you know. Jazakumullah khair. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. I think probably everyone here should be asking that question. Okay, you brought us into darkness, things like this, but what's the solution then? How do I escape this? Or how does, I mean, these are things we have to do. We're not going to escape doing any of these things. I mean, maybe you can escape gaming, I don't know. But and then like the path of the kid through life, you're not going to escape any of those things. You're going to go through that same life. But the question now is like, how do I go through it? And I think the crux of it, and again, please attend the next discussions, and inshallah, if they don't solve your problem, then be sad with them, be angry at them. Shame on them, not on us. But the thing is, and I think the crux of it is, and the verse says this very clearly, is taking God as your ally. God is the ally of those who believe. God is the protector, the guardian of those who believe. And on the flip side is Taghut. And it's realizing that in every action I do, even something as simple as these events, I could be taking God, Taghut as my ally, these idols, these false gods. Who am I putting, like, whose side am I on? If I'm taking the side of God, maybe the way I approach medicine is different. If I take God as my ally, the way I approach studying and working, my mindset is different. The goals are different. The reasons I even do it are different. What I'm searching for are different. And when I approach it with God as my ally, then all these different things, and as the second section was saying, it's not that you want to get rid of the need to work. Like, let's say you had a billionaire father and you didn't need to work. It's not about getting rid of the need to work. That's like, that neediness is how you are created, but it's about utilizing that need and seeing God as an ally when you're doing that. So how do I then, how do I instead go into the light? How do I find God as a wali? And we do have like good examples of this. And before we even go to the examples, like, just like kind of the basics are, to ally or to take someone as a protector, you need to align yourself in some way. Like when I look at, let's say an action, like, it's a very neutral example. Taking medicine, I could say, okay, this medicine is going to heal me. I've aligned myself, or I've taken a side. You can't be in the middle. You're taking a side. I can say this medicine is going to heal me. It's going to now give me health and I'm going to feel better. Or the other option is, God is my healer. God is the one who can give health. This medicine by itself can't do it. However, it's a form of asking. It's a form of now actively praying for something. I've now taken a side. And now I have a different view, a different worldview when I do that. And it's the same thing whenever I face any hardship or difficulty in my life. I'm like, whose side am I taking here? Who am I asking for help? And taking him as an ally, there's this idea of iman. Like, you need to have this belief, this relation of belief. You need to have this, like, see that there must be a creator. And you have to see how everything points to him. Everything shows tawheed. And this will also be in the next session. But there's also this idea of submission. Once you see everything points to him, you also submit yourself to him. There's the idea of like trusting him. You trust in God. You see that how he's taking care of everything. You see that if you take him as your ally, he's not going to leave you to despair. You see that if you take him as an ally, you will find his mercy. You submit to his mercy, and try to read it, try to find it. And if you do not take God as your ally, if you're just like, I don't care about any of this, I'll just do whatever I want, then you're going to inevitably be taking Taghut as an ally. These things that take you into darkness. There's no other path. You only have those two paths. And Taghut, I really appreciate how in the Quran, it's like, it's a very impactful word to say you're taking Taghut as your ally. Like when I hear that, I'm like, who's Taghut? Why are you saying I'm taking this Taghut as my ally? I don't care about Taghut. I don't like Taghut. But it's like, no, you're taking him as your ally. That's exactly where you're ending up if you don't take God as your ally. So we started a bit late. I think we have 15 minutes. So now we'll try to briefly go into some case studies, like some prophet examples and different examples that how did they actually take God as their ally, their wali, this idea of a wali. So bismillah.
So the first one that we have over here, I'll just read it. It's about Prophet Ibrahim in a conversation with a king. Have you not considered the one who argued with Abraham about his Lord because Allah had given him kingship? When Abraham said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death," he said, I give life and cause death. Abraham said, Indeed, Allah brings up the sun from the east, so bring it up from the west. So the disbeliever was overwhelmed by astonishment, and Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. So over here, Prophet Ibrahim is in a conversation with a king who is relying on himself. So Prophet Ibrahim is like, my Lord is the one who gives life and death, and he's like, I give it. So instead of relying on God, thinking of God as the creator, the sustainer, he thinks he is the one who is doing all that. So Prophet Abraham challenges him, and this disbeliever is overwhelmed by that. And in here, so this person is, allying with Tahut instead of allying with God. And what is the darkness that he is led into? And I see the darkness as Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. So he is led into misguidance. He is misguided. And that is the darkness that he is faced with over here when he, does not rely on God.
Yeah. I mean, here the king, it's something where like, he says, I give life and I cause death. And when we read this, you're like, oh, what a crazy king, He's like, and then Ibrahim alayhi salam very rightly asks, okay, God brings up the sun from the east, so you bringing it up from the west if you really give life and you cause death. And then the disbeliever was overwhelmed. He couldn't stand up to that. He was burdened. And in my life, do I think I ever give life or cause death? Or maybe I look at other things and I say, you can give life, you can cause death, you can give health, you can give this, you can give me sustenance or something. I see that in my life, there are different ways that I can also be saying, I give life and I cause death in the same way. And just like in this story, this example, I will also be overwhelmed. Going on to the next example.
The mountain is Tahut. And he said, board it in the name of Allah. So this is about Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, and he is in a conversation with his people. And he said, board it. In the name of Allah, it will sail and cast anchor. Surely my Lord is all forgiving, most merciful. And so the ark sailed with them through waves like mountains. Noah called out to his son, who stood apart, "Oh, my dear son, come aboard with us and do not be with the disbelievers." He replied, "I will take refuge on a mountain which will protect me from the water." Noah cried, "Today no one is protected from Allah's decree except those to whom he shows mercy." And the waves came between them, and his son was among the drowned. So over here, go back. What I really like about this imagery, this is so beautiful. And so the ark sailed with them through waves like mountains. This is so powerful for me. And this also reminds me of how believers are holding on to the firmest handhold that we were talking about, firmest, unfailing handhold. That, this ship, this ark is sailing through waves like mountains. It really shows us how much power is with the ones who align with God, because he is the most powerful, and he is the one who can, who really is the protector, and how strong they are against calamities that are, as big as this one. But over here, let's also zero into the attitude of the son, who, instead of again relying on God, he thinks the mountain is going to be the protector and going to protect him. And once again, he is led into darkness, and that darkness is twofold. So, on the one hand, this life which he was holding so dear to him is now ending, but also that life is ending with him being an unbeliever, which really is the utmost darkness of them all. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the clearest examples. I mean, that I know. The son, so Prophet Noah, he says, "Come on the ship, be safe. We will, we're going to sail in the name of Allah. It will sail and cast anchor. Board it in the name of God." And then the son says, "No, I'm going to seek refuge on a mountain. I'm not going to board the ship." And that's a very clear example of, it's not taking God as your ally, as your protector. It's taking refuge on a mountain. We also in our lives, we try to take refuge on our own mountains that we see that become taghut for us, because they take us into darkness. They lead us into darkness. We find that it actually doesn't help us. And, yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but that's kind of a case study of how you see a prophet and his son.
Could you actually go to the one before this one?
The first one?
Yeah. Because this one, when you were talking about how, you know, he was burdened by this responsibility of bringing the sun from the east, it also reminded me, this is similar. We don't say I give life and cause death, but we do say things like, oh, you know, I create such beautiful paintings at work, or like I make the best gaming software and all these things, right? So what we're doing essentially is also, you know, burdening ourselves with those responsibilities, which are, you know, causing us pain, taking us into darkness, but also being distractions from remembrance of God as well. So again, our attitude, you know, you can look at this and be like, oh, I don't do that, but our attitudes are similar to this
Yeah,
as well.
definitely we feel so much burden on ourselves. And I think this is a very positive example of how to take God as your ally. And then inshallah we can end here and open the floor to some questions.
Yeah, and take them into light.
Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. So this is the example of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam when he was going to be thrown into the fire, and he, you know, relied on Allah, and he said this beautiful verse, which is also very famous these days with the situation in Gaza. He said, Hasbunallahi wa ni'mal wakil. Sufficient for us is Allah, and He is the best disposer of affairs. And as we all know, he took God as his wali, as his protector, and he was saved from the fire, which was made fuel for him. So that is one way in which, you know, God protects and helps the believers.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, it's like, okay, but how, you know, this doesn't solve maybe the picture to say, okay, I can take this, how I can take God as my ally in my day-to-day life. It needs more reinforcement. We need to go through it more. So that will be, inshallah, something to do in the upcoming sessions. But here, the idea, I guess the crux of it, just like the foundation, is realizing that you are taking a side, or there is someone you're asking for help. When you have this need, this difficulty, this hardship, you know, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he could have asked, or, you know, maybe he could have been like, let me try to ask this guard for help, or let me ask someone else for help, or let me despair. But rather, it's, I take God as my ally. I trust in God. I have tawakkul. I have reliance on God. I see that He will take care of me. And whatever thing I face, it will be, you are taking God's side, or you're trying to ally yourself with God. You're trying to be on His side, align yourself with Him. And whatever event you face after that, and of course, there's some physical action that's going to come. It's not just sit there and do nothing, but whatever event you face, you will read it differently. So yeah, jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, let's open the floor for some, if anyone has questions or something they like to comment.
So for the beginning verse was Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu. So God is the protector, guardian of the believers. And the very next verse is the verse that you mentioned with Ibrahim alayhi salam and the king. So in here, this is the right next verse. Like, I mean, the example you gave with Ibrahim alayhi salam being thrown into fire, this is the type of protection and guardianship we seek. Like, you're being thrown into fire and God makes you not burn in the fire. I mean, this is what I would consider as guardianship, which is being mentioned elsewhere in Quran. But right after when Quran was mentioning God's guardianship, this verse comes. And in this verse, the idea of guardianship we think about is not there. Like, it's just an argument. Two people are having an argument, and Ibrahim alayhi salam says, my creator is the giver of life and death. The king says, I also do it. So in this verse, we should be able to see that guardianship of God is here for Ibrahim, since he is now representing the believer, and the king, who is the disbeliever in this case, should be dragged into fire and the darkness, just in this example, which is very beautifully being put here. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is saying that my God is the creator, a giver of life and death. The king thinks or considers that he can also do that. But can he? This is what I think you were saying since the beginning. They are lying. So what do we mean by they are lying? This is the lie. Because as you said, yes, we think that we give life or we give death. Like we feel like our kids are there because of us. Like we made them, sort of. This is general, I mean, very commonly a parental feeling. I make this child, sort of a feeling. So do I really give life to someone? Or when I kill someone, did I give them death? But these are very natural things that we feel about. This is how this king is also saying that I give life, I give death. So, but Ibrahim alayhi salam's light, because his belief brings him into light, putting a perspective to him saying that, no, you're neither giving life nor giving death. It is not your role in this existence. The one who can give life and death can only be the one who raises the sun and sets the sun. If you can raise the sun, then I will accept your claim. That's why he's saying, just to show that he was wrong in his false perception of giving life and death, he says, well, then raise the sun from west so he's trying to show him that this is where your darkness lies. So yes, I mean, since the beginning, you're trying to convince us that we are in darkness. But as you see in this example, the king doesn't consider that he is in darkness. He feels like he's strong. He can give life and death. So Ibrahim Hassan just pulls him and makes him face himself, saying that, look, you're relying on yourself, which has a false image, false self-image. You can do nothing really. So in this case, you are so fragile of a creature in this universe, and you're relying on this false, strong self-image, which doesn't have any reality. So where are you going? So this overwhelmedness or dumbfoundedness of the king in here is what we find ourselves in. And on the other hand, Ibrahim is no one in here. Like the other one is a king, he is no one. But the one who is apparently worldly no one, just a regular person, is so secure, so comfortable, whereas the king is the one who is dumbfounded. So this is how Iman is then protecting me. Through my conviction, my Iman, my creator is protecting me. Thrown into fire and being saved from fire physically is becoming secondary in this case, really. Internally, am I having this enlightened world? Jazakallah.
Jazakallah khairan. I think, how much time do we have?
I think we're done.
I think we have 2 minutes. So if anyone has,
I just have one comment.
yeah.
Jamie? Just a thought, because I think everything goes back to intention. So maybe none of that is wrong. Maybe the gaming one is wrong because, but this is passing time. But actually, isn't it always tying it back to intention, right? So if we're working to support a family, right, we're working hard and a lot of our time is going to working, but our intention is to support our family, then that's ibadah, right? So that I don't see how that could take us to darkness. Anything in exaggeration, or if you're not tying it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I think that's so to me, the intention is super, super important here in these activities. Just wanted to overlay that.
Can I say something to that? I don't think, yeah, I agree with you. And I also just don't think I think maybe we miscommunicated. Like none of these things are bad in and of itself. The problem was that we rely on them as our protectors. And that is where we, fall into darkness. So it's that's the bit, relying on them as my savior, instead of saying, oh, I took this medicine, alhamdulillah, God gave me shifa. I asked him, he gave me shifa. Instead of that, we say, oh, this medicine, it's the best, you should try it too. So that's where we rely on these things. That's the problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's about who you rely on. Who are you asking for? Even like, if I am trying to support my family, I can understand that could be such a big burden on myself that I place on myself. If I think I need to do it, I need to live up to it, I need to perform well. Even there, like I need to ask for my creator. I'm working, I'm studying, but I ask for my creator, and this is what the next sessions will be. How do I ask for my creator when I'm doing those things, so they don't turn into burdens for me? Because it's so easy for those things to turn into burdens for me.
When we look back in the hardships.
Yeah, let me give you this.
We have been like, when we look back on some things that we've done in our lives, which were so difficult, and we go, oh my God, like, how did I do that? Right? If it wasn't for the help of subhanAllah, we wouldn't have been able to do it. Like, we're very cognizant of that. It's not that we're really doing it. We're doing it with the help of Allah, that recognition. Because what I look back and go, how did I even do that? Even raising our children and all the difficulties.
Any final remark, comment, question?
Objections.
No objections. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. Schedule? No.
Let's start at 2.
So inshallah at 2 we will pray in 1:30 Zuhur, and then we will start the next session at 2 inshallah.